BBC Tonight BBC Question Time is taking place in Dumfries. It is likely that the reports of groping and harassment at the President's Club dinner will be one of the central topics on this week's show. The claims that Nicola Sturgeon is attempting to eradicate the Union Jack will surely be discussed given the panel's close ties to Scotland. Emmanuel Macron gave an impressive display during an interview with Andrew Marr on Sunday, but astonished critics when agreeing that France would have left the EU in a similar referendum to the UK's. It will be interesting to hear the views of the audience on the subject. In addition, Boris Johnson's calls for an increase in funding for the NHS after Brexit and his suggestion that the UK should build a bridge linking the UK to France may also feature 11:54 p.m. That's a wrap. That's all the questions for tonight. Next week the show will take place in the English town of Grantham, where the former Secretary of State for Education, Justine Greening, will appear on the panel. The week after the show will be hosted in Darlington. 11.50 The final question has been asked. An audience member said, "In the current climate, does the panel think a £500,000 a week salary is appropriate?" BBC. A member of the audience backed Boris Johnson for raising his concerns with the NHS. 11:45 p.m. Labour bashes the banks for behaving like corporate scroungers. Mr. Williamson said, "The banks are behaving like corporate scroungers. Surely it is time for them to give back." 11:41 p.m. The fifth question has been asked. A member of the audience has asked a question about the closure of bank branches. They said, should the closing of the bank branches not be more than a commercial decision, especially in a rural area like this? BBC. A member of the audience caused an outcry from Chris Williamson. 11.39 Labour favours the EU over trading with Donald Trump. Chris Williamson stood against a trading deal with Donald Trump and claimed that he wants to focus on securing access to the EU single market. He declared that it would be nonsense to try and establish a trade deal with the US president. 11.35 The UK urged to watch its back for Donald Trump. A US citizen warned the UK against forming any kind of trade deal with Mr. Trump. She said, "As an American citizen, I urge you to watch your backs. I think Trump is a villain." Getty. An audience member asked whether the UK should pursue a relationship with Donald Trump. 11.34 The fourth question has been asked. A member of the audience has transitioned discussions towards the UK's relationship with Donald Trump. They asked, during Brexit we will have a pro-British US president. Isn't that tremendous? 11.30 Labour skewered by a member of the audience. Chris Williamson was blasted after claiming Jeremy Corbyn is the greatest leader Labour have ever seen. BBC. Emma Forsyth defended the appearance of Nadia Zahawi at the President's Club Gala. 11.22 Jeremy Corbyn is a Marxist. A member of the audience caused an outcry from Chris Williamson after labelling his party leader a Marxist. He declared, "I think Jeremy Corbyn is a Marxist. I wouldn't let Diane Abbott run a bath." 11.20 The third question has been asked by a member of the audience. They said, is the Labour Party being taken over by momentum extremists? BBC Question Time has started. 11.18 Michael Forsyth defends his Conservative ally. Mr. Forsyth defended the appearance of the Minister for Children and Families, Nadia Zahawi, at the President's Club Gala. He blasted Maggie Chapman's suggestion as childish. 11.13 Nadia Zahawi should be sacked by Theresa May. Maggie Chapman has called on Theresa May to sack the Minister for Children and Families, Nadia Zahawi, following his appearance at the President's Club Gala. She added, "I think the whole thing is an utter disgrace." BBC. A member of the audience claimed that Jeremy Corbyn is a Marxist. 11.10 The second question has been asked. A member of the audience asked, "What does the President's Club tell us about Britain today?" 11.08 p.m. Peter Oborne calls for Labour and Conservatives to join forces. Mr. Oborne claimed that the only way to deal with the NHS crisis and Brexit is for the UK's two biggest parties to come together. He stated, "The parties must come together. They have to agree. This is what Labour left last time they were in government. BBCTpic.twitter.com 31 Jitnit CCHQ Press Office at Scress. January 25, 201,811.05 Is the NHS more important than Brexit? An NHS worker in the audience was keen to attack the panel for infighting as she claimed Brexit issues should be put on hold to deal with the ongoing situation with the NHS. She said, "Our MPs not to stop outdoing each other and actually have some honest discussions. They need to stop discussing everything about Brexit. We have day-to-day issues. We need to manage." 10.57 Was Boris right to speak up about the NHS? A member of the audience has backed the Foreign Secretary for being the only one that is willing to talk about NHS. He said, "Speaking about this later isn't going to solve a problem we have today." Theresa May was called upon by Maggie Chapman to sack Nadhim Zahawi. 10:53 p.m. NHS in crisis. Chris Williamson attempted to blast the Conservatives for putting the NHS in crisis, before being skewered by Peter Oborne for not answering the question posed to him. Mr. Oborne said, "Labour is a shambles on Brexit. You didn't even answer the lady's question." 10:50 p.m. Here we go. Question time has started. The first question of the night: do you agree that Theresa May was correct to slap Boris Johnson down for wanting more money for the NHS? Two vegans on BBC QT panel tonight. First time that's ever happened apparently. How appropriate in veganuary. As I keep saying, the vegans will inherit the earth. My friends. https://t.cas8moa50 swe. Chris Williamson MP at Derby Cross. January 25, 201,810. 34 p.m. First time two vegans have been on a Question Time panel. Chris Williamson has tweeted that today marks the first time two vegans have made an appearance on BBC Question Time. The MP said two vegans on BBC QT panel tonight. First time that's ever happened apparently. How appropriate in veganuary. As I keep saying, the vegans will inherit the earth, my friends. 10:32 p.m. President's Club closes following a slew of allegations. Meanwhile, the accusations thrown at the President's Club charity has forced it to close as Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, as well as other beneficiaries of the charity, handed back large sums of money. Theresa May's spokesperson declared the Prime Minister was appalled by the allegations that have been thrown at attendees. It is likely that the reports of harassment at the President's Club dinner will be discussed. 10:25 p.m. Nicola Sturgeon's fake news accusations. The panel's close ties to Scotland mean that Nicola Sturgeon's recent blasting of Theresa May's fake news unit could dominate discussions. The Scottish First Minister launched the attack through a series of posts on Twitter. She iterated that there had been no change in flag policy since 2010. Fiona Hislop is the Culture Secretary in the Scottish Government. Woe is Michael Forsyth. Brexiteer Michael Forsyth was the Secretary of State for Scotland from 19,951,997 and was on the board of the Vote Leave campaign. Also known as Baron Forsyth of Drumleon, he served in the cabinet under John Major during his time as Secretary of State. He has also been a Conservative peer since 1999 and was previously the MP for Stirling from 1983 to 1997 and was appointed to the House of Lords in 1999. Who is Maggie Chapman? Maggie Chapman has been the co-convener of the Scottish Greens since 2013 and was a councillor for the party in Edinburgh from 20,072,015. She also became the rector at the University of Aberdeen after being elected in 2014. Her term ended last month. Chapman was born in southern Rhodesia before moving to Scotland to study zoology at the University of Edinburgh. Who is Fiona Hislop? Fiona Hislop is the Culture Secretary in the Scottish Government and has been the SNP MSP for Linlithgow and Lothian since 1999. Hislop was the Education Secretary under Alex Salmond, the former First Minister of Scotland. She joined the SNP in 1986 and was an active member of the party's youth wing known as Young Scots for Independence. Who is Chris Williamson? Chris Williamson is the Labour MP for Derby North. He previously held the seat from 20,100 in 2015. Williamson recently stood down from his position as the party's shadow fire minister the day after he suggested council tax bills for the highest value homes in England should be doubled. From 20,100 in 2013, he was the shadow minister for Communities and Local Government. Who is Peter Oborne? Peter Oborne is the associate editor of The Spectator and former commentator for The Telegraph. He resigned from the paper in 2015. Oborne is also an author of How Trump Thinks, A Dangerous Delusion, Why the West is Wrong About Nuclear Iran, and The Rise of Political Lying. He also writes a political column for the Daily Mail. He won the Press Awards Columnist of the Year in 2012 and 2016.